I'm Anastasia Laurina. Later today, French lawmakers will debate and vote on the no-confidence motions filed against the fragile government of Michel Barnier. This comes after French Prime Minister chose on Monday to push through a highly contested budget bill without parliamentary approval, utilizing special constitutional powers. Less than 3 months after its appointment, Michel Barnier's minority government appears to be on the brink of collapse. However, the Prime Minister remains confident about the future. In an interview yesterday, he stated that he still believes his government can survive the upcoming vote. More on this issue is coming up in the program now. But first, let's watch the pre-recorded comment of the former French minister and member of European Parliament, Thierry Mariani.
Well, it's very easy to understand. We had European election in June, and the list of the President Macron was number 2 with only 60 or 17%. Just after, he understands that he has no majority, and the day where there was the result of the European election is decide snap election. And after the snap election was in July, he just have a little bit more than 100 seats on 577 on the parliament. That means he has no majority. He has no more majority. And the situation is completely blocked. Why? Because you have one bloc around Macron with nearly 30%. One bloc around Mr. Mélenchon, the extreme far left, with around 30%. And one bloc around Marine Le Pen with around 30%. That means there is no majority. And in this moment, it's like in all the states, we must vote the budget. And everybody asks many things. And in fact, there is no agreement possible. What's happened? The Prime Minister presents his budget and has, in fact, just 30% is agree with this budget. There is what we call motion of censure. That means a sort of vote of fate. And this vote of fate will be in 2 days. The result is knowing in advance because the result will be against the government. What can arrive after that? There is 3 solutions. First, the President Macron nominate a new prime minister. Second, he decide to keep a new prime minister with another program. But excuse me, it will be exactly the same scenario after. Third, he can resign. But of course, he will not want to resign. If you want my opinion, the problem now in France is not the majority in the parliament. The problem is the president himself. Because, of course, by the law, he can stay until 2027 because he's elected for 5 years until 2027. But it's an evidence that he have no more the trust of the French people. It's the last polling opinion was 17%. 17%. Honestly, I am in politics. I never saw that. And normally, when of course, it's not written on the constitution, but when you realize that you have no trust, when you realize that the situation is blocked, normally you resign. It's exactly what did Charles de Gaulle in 1969. And excuse me, Charles de Gaulle has another personality, historic personality that Mr. Macron. But he decided, okay, the French people don't trust me anymore, I go away. And new presidential election. Now in France, the situation, everybody understands that the situation is completely blocked because by the constitution, there can be not new legislative election before next July. Because in fact, we can have just one snap election one time a year. I don't see any solution. Honestly, there is only one case like that. It was in 1886, more than 1 century ago, where the president at the end resigned. And everything is blocked. Everything is blocked. Excuse me, if Macron wants to give his first service to his French, he can resign.
Well, and for more discussion on this issue, joining me now from France is Francesco Saraceno, Professor of European Economics. Warm welcome to our program.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And the first question, the government must step down if the either measure is approved by Parliament, seen as a strong possibility if the left wing and far right unite. Is collapse imminent for the French government?
I would say it's almost certain. Just this morning on the French radio, the number 2 of the Rassemblement National, the far-right party that has a big number of members of parliament, say that they would vote the no confidence motion presented by the left. So if there is an alliance between these two groups, there is no way Barnier can escape. He's trying to call individual members of parliament for an act of responsibility, as it calls it. But I mean, I don't see any way he can escape that. I mean, it's a certain outcome of today's vote.
This would mark only the second time a French government has been ousted since 1958 and the first since 1962, if I'm not mistaken. So what would happen if the no confidence vote passes today on Wednesday?
I think, the piece you sent before was very much summarized it. Okay, so the overall situation is, of course, a situation of blockage. It's a gridlock because there is no way, there is no possibility to call new elections before next July. Even if Macron, the president, resigns, which should be a political, which politically would be clearly a very clear signal, this wouldn't solve the problem because this parliament will stay with us for at least 7 months. So there will need to be another minority government, maybe one that is less likely to have a no confidence vote, to get at least to next June and to pass a budget law, because that is the urgency now. There needs to be a budget law, and this government will not be able to do it. Apparently, what the press is expecting is that Macron will name a new prime minister in the next few hours, even before Saturday, when he's due to inaugurate the reopening of Notre Dame. And so this new government will have to be sufficiently not disliked by the two extremes so that it can carry on until next June. But it's a very difficult situation. Politically speaking, it's a very difficult situation.
Indeed, as we can understand, the position of the French President Emmanuel Macron, for example, yesterday he said that he plans to remain in office until the end of his term and will not resign even if Parliament votes no confidence in the country's current government. So what we should expect from President Macron if it happens? As we can see, he is keen to stay in office until the end of his term.
He will have to compose. Of course, I'm an economist. I'm not a political scientist, but I don't see any possibility that he regains some popularity and some legitimacy with the French people. So he will remain until the end of until when he decides to leave, either 2027 or before. He will remain a minority president, unpopular. He will have to name a prime minister, as I said, in the next few months, just to hope that we can get to July with the minimum service accomplished. And then, of course, in July, we need to hope that the new elections will yield a clear majority, because, as you said before, there were very few cases of governments being censored, so having a no confidence vote, but there were many instances of majorities that were different from the party of the president. So there could be, if the new parliament next July manages to, if the voters manage to give a clear majority to one party, then the most likely outcome will be that we will arrive until 2027 with a president of one party, Macron, and with a government with another majority. That is not unusual for France. What is unusual is the fact that there is no majority at all. That is what is problematic today.
How do you think this situation may affect the France's economic and political future also?
I was going going to that. I mean, this is a very serious political crisis, actually. I mean, you said it yourself, the piece you sent before summarizes it very well. On the other hand, I think that the worries about the French are a little bit exaggerated. The French economy particularly poorly, not, for example, than the big partner that is Germany. The German economy is in much worse shape right now than the French economy, especially from a structural point of view. Even the public finances of France that seem to worry so much many commentators. Yes, of course, the deficit is very high, the debt is very high, but there is nothing, it's not sustainable. Okay, so there will be time to bring these numbers down to more decent levels, and there is no risk. Some people have been mentioning the risk of a Greek-style crisis. For your listeners, there was a major debt crisis in the early year 2010 related to the Greek economy, but that is not at all what we are seeing here in France. France is a solid economy. They are capable of raising revenues. The interest rates on the French debt have remained, in spite of this huge political crisis since last July, have remained quite moderate. So I don't see any risk of a near-term debt crisis, financial crisis. The French economy, like the whole European economy, is not doing very well compared to its competitors, China and the United States. But this is a much more general problem in Europe. It's not a French problem.
Yeah, that was actually my next question about the expectations for Eurozone itself. We know about the strong bilateral cooperation in the economic sphere between France and Germany, but we cannot exclude the fact that France is the second largest economy in the Eurozone. So talking more about the implications for these developments, for Europe especially as a whole, what else you can add to your previous answer?
This is where I'm very pessimistic, okay, because we have the two largest European economies, France and Germany, both in a very deep political crisis. Let's not forget that Germany, the German government just fell last week, and there will be snap elections in Germany as well in next February. So it is very likely that in the next few months, both the French and the German leaderships will be very much inward oriented. I don't see whoever will be the prime minister of France, I don't see France being able to propose bold measures and to support and to push forward a bold agenda for Europe in the next few months. And the same can be said for Germany. Most parties today in Germany the campaign in Germany is really focused on German issues, and this is normal, of course, right? So if you have the engine of the European political agenda, France and Germany, that is today completely stopped because these two countries are not looking outside, they're looking inward, then of course we cannot expect many things to happen at the European level. And this is a very bad news because Europe has today, once again, I mean, in the past has been very often the case, is facing existential crisis. Okay? We need to decide what industrial policies to put in place to carry on the ecological transition. We need to decide how to try to recover our lost ground with respect to our competitors, the United States on one side and China and other emerging economies on the other. So we are at a crossroads. Europe is at a crossroads. It needs bold choices. And the two major European countries, France and Germany, do not seem today capable of pushing a European agenda. I mean, it will be a miracle if they manage to solve their internal problems in the next few months. So that is what is very worrisome. I wouldn't worry for the French debt. I would worry for the lack of leadership at the European level that the French crisis is implying.
Right, especially now when in the United States there will be a new president. Donald Trump comes to White House in January, and how exactly the cooperation with the European Union, in particular with France, will be developed, that's a big issue to be discussed. And my last question to you for today, your future expectations from the French government. You spoke about the problems faced by the country and by European Union itself. So what does the population of France expect from the French government to be done in the upcoming future to stabilize these political and economic disagreements inside?
That is a very difficult question, of course, because what the people want is very. I mean, there are many dimensions, of course. What caused the result of the election last July? So what caused the defeat of the government, of the Macron party and of the government in the last election was that the French middle classes feel a little bit dispossessed. Okay? So they feel that they have been losing ground in terms of purchasing power, of welfare, of public services, and they don't feel that the government has been giving them the answers they want. Just to give you an example of how this topic is important, the far-right party is motivating the no-confidence vote of today precisely with the fact that the Barnier government has not been protecting enough the purchasing power of the French middle classes. Now, of course, this is an excuse. I mean, I'm not saying that this is the real motivation why they vote the no confidence. But on the other hand, it explains what is today politically speaking to the French voters. The French voters are worried about their purchasing power, by the loss of public services, and these are the things that they feel, probably rightly so, that the Macron presidency has not delivered to them. Actually, the contrary. They feel that with respect to 2017, when Macron won his first presidential election, they have lost in terms of well-being.
Well, sir, thank you so much for joining our discussion today. Thank you, dear viewers, for watching ANewz. Stay with us and see you in the next edition.